She handed a steaming cup of coffee to a man with a dog right in front of the health inspector. Her boss didn't raise his voice, just spoke with chilling finality. "Emily, you're done." 6 years of loyalty at Willow's Haven Diner dissolved in a single sentence. She didn't cry, just untied her apron, hands trembling, and walked out into the Pennsylvania dusk. Not because she broke a rule, but because she stood up for a veteran and his service dog. What Emily didn't know was that a local journalist, hidden in a corner booth, filmed the entire scene. Her quiet defiance was captured, a spark ready to ignite. Before the diner closed that night, 3 military Humvees roared into the lot, led by a Marine colonel in full-dress blues, a man whose life was once saved by a veteran like the one Emily protected. In that moment, everything changed. Why would a simple act of kindness cost her everything? And what brought the military to a small-town diner? The answer lies in a woman who poured more than coffee. She poured her heart into a community that would soon stand behind her. Emily Carter wasn't the kind of woman who turned heads, but she was the one people remembered long after they left her diner. At 36, she ran Willow's Haven, a modest eatery tucked on the edge of Willow Creek, Pennsylvania, just a 20-minute drive from Fort Indiantown Gap, one of the largest National Guard bases in the Northeast. The town itself was a snapshot of small-town America. Oak-lined streets, American flags fluttering on every other porch, and a bakery with a sign so faded it seemed to hold secrets from decades past. But inside Willow's Haven, the air felt different, warmer, more human. Emily didn't run the diner like a business. She ran it like a home. The coffee was strong, the mugs were chipped but sturdy, and the walls held stories in every scuff and photograph. Above the register hung a picture of her late husband, Sergeant James Carter, not in uniform, but in a denim jacket, smiling with a coffee mug in hand. It was taken 2 weeks before his final deployment to Afghanistan. He never came home. Emily never spoke of her loss, but she poured her grief into the diner, turning it into a sanctuary for those who carried their own silent burdens. Veterans, especially, found solace there, drawn not by the menu but by the woman who remembered their names and their stories. Every Wednesday at 9 sharp, Willow's Haven became a haven in Willow Creek, Pennsylvania, where veterans gathered over steaming coffee. Emily Carter set out her chipped mugs, reserved for those who filed in, their steps soft on the wooden floor. The air carried dark roast and quiet stories. Veterans Hour, sparked by her father-in-law, a retired National Guard drill sergeant, began with 3. Him, a Vietnam vet who spoke in nods, and an Army nurse with a lifting laugh. It grew, drawing men and women from Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria. Emily didn't offer fixes, only presence, refilling mugs, her smile catching the weight in their eyes. A young soldier from Syria sat alone, hands shaking, until Emily slid a coffee his way, standing close until he exhaled. An older Marine, scarred from Vietnam, came for the silence she guarded, not the coffee. She let service dogs rest under tables unquestioned. Her words, soft as she poured, "This is a place to be seen, not fixed." The diner's walls held their lives, photos, notes, a chalkboard with birthdays. James Carter's picture watched over, his denim-clad smile tying Emily's heart to her mission. She kept a notebook. Tom, decaf afternoon, Lisa's dog likes the window. The mayor thanked her monthly, kids held doors, veterans called her ma'am with earnest respect. Emily didn't seek praise. She understood service's cost, building a home where veterans felt human again. The bell over Willow's Haven's door rang sharp, cutting through the warm hum of Veterans Hour. Charles Vance, the state health inspector, stepped inside, his grey suit stiff, his clipboard held like a shield. His eyes scanned the diner with cold precision, noting every detail, until they landed on John Miller, a 50-year-old ex-Marine sitting quietly in the corner. By John's side was Max, his black lab service dog, wearing a red vest with bold white letters, "Do not pet." Max lay still, a steady presence for a man whose nights were haunted by memories of Iraq. Vance froze, his voice slicing the air. "That dog is a health code violation. Animals don't belong where food is served." Conversation stopped. Heads turned. Emily Carter stepped from behind the counter, her sleeves rolled up, her face calm but unyielding. "Max is a registered service dog," she said, her voice steady as the morning light. "Federal law protects his right to be here." Vance's scowl deepened, his pen tapping the clipboard like a metronome of authority. "I don't care about vests or laws," he snapped. "Dogs carry dander, saliva, hair. This is a food safety hazard. Remove it, or I'll shut this place down." John stiffened, his hand tightening on his coffee mug, but Max didn't move, eyes fixed on his owner. The diner fell silent, the air thick with tension. Emily took a slow breath, her gaze locked on Vance. "I'm not asking John to leave, and I'm not asking Max to leave either," she said, her words clear, deliberate. "This diner serves people, not just food. People who've earned the right to sit here." A veteran at a nearby table muttered, "Damn right," but the room held its breath. Vance's jaw clenched, his authority challenged in front of a dozen watchful eyes. Emily stood her ground, her blue flannel a quiet contrast to his starched suit. She wasn't loud, wasn't angry, just resolute, her hand steady despite the storm brewing inside. The chalkboard behind her read, "Veterans Hour, free coffee for those who served." A reminder of the space she'd built. Vance scribbled on his clipboard, his pen scratching like a warning. "You're making a mistake," he said, his voice low, final. Emily didn't flinch. She knew the rules, knew the risk, but she also knew the man sitting with his dog, the weight he carried, the battles he'd fought. This wasn't about health codes. It was about dignity. The silence stretched heavy as customers exchanged glances, some gripping their mugs tighter. A young barista, Lily, stood frozen by the coffee machine, her eyes wide. No one moved, but something shifted in that moment. A line was drawn, a stand was taken. Emily's choice was clear, and though she couldn't know it yet, someone in the corner, a local journalist named Sarah Wells, was quietly raising her phone, capturing every word, every gesture, every ounce of courage in a woman who refused to back down. Emily Carter stood in the center of Willow's Haven, her blue flannel catching the cold light from the diner's windows. Charles Vance, the health inspector, pointed at Max, John Miller's service dog, his voice sharp. "Get that dog out, or this place is finished." Emily's response was calm, unwavering. "I won't ask a veteran or his service dog to leave. You can write your report, but you'll do it knowing you're targeting a man who served this country to protect people like us." Her words hung in the air, a quiet defiance that silenced the room. Veterans watched, their eyes steady, some nodding in silent agreement. A spoon clattered to the floor, breaking the tension. Then the door swung open, and Karen Holt, the regional manager, stepped in, her heels clicking like a judge's gavel. Her voice was ice. "Emily Carter, you violated health compliance policy in front of a state inspector. You're fired." Gasps rippled through the diner. John gripped his mug, his knuckles white, while Max lay still, sensing the shift. Emily didn't waver. She untied her apron, fingers trembling but deliberate, folded it neatly, and placed it on the counter. Turning to Lily, the young barista, she whispered, "Make sure John gets his refill." She walked out into the Pennsylvania sunlight, the door closing softly behind her. The diner stood frozen, veterans exchanging glances, their coffee cooling untouched. A woman near the register wiped a tear. No one spoke, but in the corner, Sarah Wells, the journalist, kept her phone raised, capturing the moment. A woman standing for dignity, losing everything for it. Emily's steps faded outside, but her choice echoed, a spark in the quiet. She didn't know it yet, but that spark was about to ignite something far bigger than Willow's Haven. Sarah's video, now in her pocket, held a story of courage, one that would soon ripple beyond the diner's wooden walls. Emily had drawn a line, not for glory, but because it was right. The veterans she served, the ones who came for coffee and stayed for solace, deserved no less. Her notebook, still on the counter, held their names, their stories, their trust. As Lily poured John's refill, her hands shaking, the chalkboard sign behind her read, "Veterans Hour, free coffee for those who served." It was more than a sign. It was Emily's promise, one she'd kept even at the cost of her job. Somewhere in an office lined with military photos, a phone rang, and a Marine colonel listened, his jaw tightening. The diner's silence wasn't the end. It was the beginning. The air in Willow's Haven hung heavy after Emily Carter's exit, her footsteps fading into the Pennsylvania dusk. In a corner booth, Sarah Wells, a local journalist, lowered her phone, its screen glowing with captured footage. Within hours, her video exploded on Twitter, captioned, "Woman fired for defending veteran and his dog." A user wrote, "She's a hero, but filming without consent feels wrong," sparking debates online. The video spread like wildfire, hashtags like #JusticeForEmily, trending as news outlets amplified the story. Emily's stand became a beacon, a spark lighting up screens nationwide. In a military office, Colonel Thomas Reed watched the clip, light glinting off his medals. His face hardened at Emily's words, her defiance. A Marine saved by a veteran's sacrifice in Iraq, Reed felt her choice's weight. He picked up the phone, his voice resolute, issuing orders. Sarah, at her desk, typed furiously, torn between guilt for filming unpermitted and pride in exposing injustice. Her post fueled arguments. Some called her a hero, others questioned her ethics. In Willow Creek, whispers spread through porches and shops, pride mixing with outrage. Emily's act wasn't just a moment. It was a movement, captured in grainy footage, shared by strangers who felt its truth. Online, debates raged. Should health codes bend for service dogs? Was Emily reckless or righteous? Reed hung up, his decision made, as Willow's Haven's chalkboard stood firm. Veterans Hour. The dusk settled over Willow Creek, Pennsylvania, as a low rumble broke the silence, like thunder rolling across the hills. 3 military Humvees roared down the oak-lined streets, their headlights cutting through the mist, tires growling against the pavement. Willow's Haven diner, still reeling from Emily Carter's departure, felt the ground tremble. Customers stood, peering through the windows, coffee forgotten in their hands. Colonel Thomas Reed, in pristine Marine dress blues, gold medals gleaming on his chest, stepped out of the lead Humvee, his presence commanding yet restrained. A dozen Marines followed, their uniforms sharp, standing at attention along the sidewalk. Inside, the air was thick. Charles Vance frozen by the pastry case, his clipboard limp, and Karen Holt, the regional manager, paling as she stepped back. Reed entered, his boots striking the wooden floor like a slow drumbeat. He nodded to John Miller, the veteran with Max by his side, a silent acknowledgement of shared service. Turning to Karen, his voice was steady, not loud. "Emily Carter, gave veterans the dignity this nation promised, but too often forgets. She turned this diner into a sanctuary. Two Marines stepped forward, removing the corporate logo from the wall, folding it with care, like a flag. Another placed a hand-painted sign in its place, Willow's Haven, where honor is served. A veteran near the counter clapped softly. Others joined, a tear slipping down a woman's cheek. Reed saluted John, who stood slowly, returning the gesture. The room felt alive, the silence now a celebration. Emily's stand, captured by a journalist's phone, had brought this moment. A reckoning, not of anger, but of respect. The chalkboard still read Veterans Hour, its promise unbroken. Outside the Humvees stood Sentinel, their engines quiet now, as if honoring the space Emily had built. The town watched, whispers spreading, some questioning the military's bold arrival, others seeing it as a tribute to a woman who'd given everything for one veteran's dignity. Reed's eyes scanned the diner, resting on Max, still calm by John's side. This wasn't just about rules or coffee. It was about a promise kept, a line held, and a community that refused to let Emily's courage fade into the dusk. Emily Carter drove through the gates of Fort Indiantown Gap, the Pennsylvania sky heavy with dusk, her coffee-stained jeans and blue flannel a stark contrast to the base's orderly flag-lined roads. She wasn't sure why she'd been summoned, only that Colonel Thomas Reed had asked her to come. Her truck's engine hummed softly, but her mind replayed the moment she'd walked out of Willow's Haven, her apron folded, her heart steady despite the cost. Reed met her at the administration building, his khaki uniform crisp, his handshake firm. He led her down a hallway lined with portraits of commanders, their eyes seeming to follow her. They stopped at a door labeled Veterans Wellness Initiative, a sparse room of folding chairs, whiteboards, and stacked boxes of therapy equipment. Reed's voice was calm, deliberate. This is a pilot program to help veterans heal, not just survive. We've struggled to find someone who understands them, not from manuals, but from the heart. A young veteran, Anna Lopez, stepped from the back, a golden retriever puppy in a training vest by her side. Her voice was shy but clear. I saw your video, standing up for that veteran. I haven't felt safe in public since I came home, but I'd come to a place you run. Emily's breath caught, her eyes meeting Anna's, seeing the faint scars on her arms. She wasn't a therapist, had no degrees, but she'd built a sanctuary with coffee and kindness at Willow's Haven. Reed stepped closer, his tone softening. You've done more for veterans with a diner than most programs do with millions. We need you to lead this center, to shape it, to make it a home. Emily's fingers brushed the old watch on her wrist, James's watch, its ticking a quiet anchor. She thought of John, of Max, of the veterans who'd found solace in her diner's chipped mugs. I'll do it, she said, her voice quiet but resolute. The room felt larger, the bare walls waiting for life. Anna's puppy wagged its tail, and Emily smiled, a flicker of purpose igniting. She didn't know it yet, but this was no ending. It was a beginning, a chance to carry her mission forward, to build a new haven where veterans could be seen, not fixed, just as she'd always done. The Veterans Wellness Center at Fort Indiantown Gap pulsed with life, its walls now warm with purpose. Emily Carter moved through, her blue flannel familiar, her notebook tucked under her arm. Tom, decaf afternoon. Lisa's dog likes the window. She wrote on a whiteboard, who needs a ride? Who needs a listener? Veterans, young and old, filled the space with families, service dogs resting in corners. Emily listened, remembered, Let silences breathe. Ana Lopez sketched dogs, her pencil steady, her scars fading into confidence. John Miller and Max claimed their spot by the window, while Lily, from Willow's Haven, brought coffee and laughter on Fridays. The center was a home, built on Emily's care. Yet, officials in suits arrived, clipboards in hand, questioning her lack of credentials. "How can she lead without training?" one muttered under cold light. Emily didn't argue, just pinned photos to walls, poured coffee, gave space. Veterans came, drawn by her consistency. A young soldier found solace in her nod. Another, through the center, landed a job. The local paper ran from Dinah to Destiny, sparking online debates about leadership. Some in Willow Creek whispered about fame, but most saw her truth. Service, not spotlight. When an auditor asked, "What qualifies you?" Emily said softly, "Consistency and kindness." Her notebook grew, each page proof that trust, not titles, built this sanctuary. Emily Carter stood in the Veterans Wellness Center, the Pennsylvania night quiet, a fire pit's glow flickering outside. She pinned 2 photos to the wall. James, her husband, in denim, smiling at Willow's Haven. Another of the center, vibrant with veterans' faces. Her mission grew from chipped mugs to a sanctuary where wounds found space to heal. She built no empire, only a home where honor grew from kindness. Willow Creek's diner now read, "Carter's Corner. No one sits alone." Emily's defiance rippled, touching lives. Her notebook, open with names, held her care. The town buzzed, some debating the journalist's video. Would you have filmed to expose injustice? This wasn't about coffee. It was about dignity, defended daily. Have you seen kindness spark change? Share your story below. Emily's lesson. A smile, a moment of listening, can ignite change that endures. She reminds us honor is a choice, made every day, to see and stand for each other. Emily Carter's journey didn't end in Willow Creek. It began a ripple that touched hearts far beyond. Her stand at Willow's Haven, her quiet care at the Veterans Wellness Center, showed us that kindness, given freely, can reshape lives. Every coffee poured, every story heard, was a choice to honor dignity over rules. Her notebook, filled with names, reminds us that small acts carry weight. In a world rushing past, Emily teaches us to pause, to see, to act. Have you seen a moment of kindness spark change? Share it below. Your story could inspire another. And let's keep this fire alive. Subscribe to Black Echoes, where we uncover tales of courage and humanity that echo in our hearts. Join our community to explore more stories like Emily's, where one person's stand becomes a movement. A smile, a nod, a hand extended. These are the threads that weave stronger communities. Emily's legacy lives in each of us, urging us to choose honor every day. Let's make that choice together, right here, right now. Subscribe, share, and be part of the echo that changes the world.